Welcome everybody to the West River Modified Union Education District Organizational Meeting. I get the privilege of calling it to order. And before we get to the election of officers, I kind of have a question for the elected officials. All of you present here today, other than Ken and Patty, were at the special annual meeting, and you had all gone to your clerks and been sworn in, but then you also did the oath at that meeting. Subsequent to that meeting, Ken went and got sworn in again. It's always good to get
And they did
redundancy.
Right, and they did the.
And they read the
oath.
affirmation for you.
Yes.
Okay. So Patty hasn't had that opportunity yet.
No.
But it would be my belief that since she was sworn in, just because she hasn't done the affirmation, she should be allowed to participate fully. Am I incorrect?
I don't
I think
know, I
you're
got one
correct.
question for you. My only question is, could I swear her in? But she's not from Townsend, so that would be the only thing that would be, you know, problem.
Well, she's been sworn in.
Well, I know, but I could, yeah, I can give the oath to anybody I know in Townsend. I don't know if, I'm a JP.
Oh.
So I don't know if I could actually give her the oath since she's not from my
Well, you're
town.
not acting on,
Why do you
you're,
say she's
you're
already
acting
sworn
for
in?
the,
So
for
she
the
got,
district, not
after
the
the
town.
election of officers,
She went in,
she went to her clerk and got sworn in.
so that's to a position, even though we had not organized, she still got elected and sworn into a position.
Correct.
To me, that's being sworn in, I don't.
It is to me, but I felt like
So
before
I
we
see
get
you got
down
me-
to
the same thing that I've ever
You got me
done when
worried
I've
because
been
you said-
elected to school board.
You know, but she actually has
Which has
gone,
been
just like
two
Ken did and
times.
I did, went to our
Absolutely.
town clerk and
Yes.
got sworn into the position she was elected to. I'm fine with that, and if somebody wants to.
That's the way I read it. I
Challenge
just
it, yeah.
wanted to make this confirmed because we're going to be voting,
Yeah.
right,
agree.
on election of
I've
officers.
never done any more than that to, when I've been elected
No.
as a school
It
board
makes
director.
complete sense to me. I
That's-
just didn't.
I
know
will
the
tell you, I was a
answers.
little surprised that we all got sworn in again, because I had already gone in and
That-
got sworn in, so I don't
That's-
think even that was
felt
necessary.
very
If we-
ceremonial.
Yeah.
Shona.
Yeah.
I think we're fine, as long as she did her official
Anyone
swearing.
not sworn in?
No.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so I just wanted to do that
Good.
before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of
So
them sworn in.
now that we have been called to order, I will now take nominations for the chairperson of the West River Modified Union Education District. Do I have?
I nominate Joe.
Oh,
No,
young,
that's,
young lady had the hand first.
and I'm fine, mine is more of a question, we have gone through this process before, but we were not official when we did it, and
You were
I'm
not
just wondering if we can just do the slate as we did before, because if we can, I would just say,
I would say
I'm
that,
happy to nominate the slate that we had nominated before and elected.
again, that'll be up to you guys.
Up to them.
I would err on the side of doing it one by one, simply because it's our first time.
Either way, it's fine with me, I'm just trying to expedite the
I would just do
process.
it because there's other people here that weren't here for the first one, and
I see where you're coming from.
Right,
I'm
and
just
I'm
really
fine with
nervous
it.
that I
same
don't do
time, yeah, I
it
agree.
So
lockstep.
so I will allow.
All right,
you
so
to
now
make the
Ken, you're up.
nomination, or-
Ken?
Okay, I nominate Joe.
Second.
All right, so
Don't
Ken
need a second.
nominates Joe Winrick. Patty, the second.
Don't need a second for a
You don't
nomination.
need a second for nominations. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor of Joe Winrich becoming the chairperson of the West River Modified Union Education District, say so by saying aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor, say so by saying nay.
For sure.
The ayes have it. Mr. Winrich, you are now in charge.
Gosh, thanks. Okay, so the next item is the election of a vice chairperson. Do I hear any nominations?
Who'd we do last year?
I nominate Al.
I believe we did nominate Al.
Yes, Al was nominated previously
I
and
don't need to
again.
second it because there's no
Right,
need, but
right.
Are there any other nominations? All right, hearing none, Do we direct the clerk to cast one ballot, that thing again?
Mhm.
Okay. So we don't even have to vote?
We do.
We do? All right.
All those in
So
favor?
all those in favor of Al as the vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Al, you're in. And next is the clerk.
I'll nominate Drew. I know he's not here, but I think he's willing to do it.
He
was
is willing to
nominated.
do it.
Okay.
He expressed interest in, keeping that, but he is at Boy Scout camp.
And I will second that,
All right, Drew Hazel.
if we need a second.
All right, any further nominations? All right, seeing none, all in favor of Drew Hazelton as our clerk, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, Drew is our clerk. Authorized signatures, that's typically the officers, but I'll entertain any nominations you want.
What does that mean? What do? They just sign for us as a body? What does that?
Yeah, they would sign official documents for the board. I believe that they're
POs.
also on the checking account, right? Bill?
Well, they sign off on POs.
They sign off on,
They, anyone actually can sign off on pay orders if you're an official
You're not
board
signing
member,
checks.
but there are official
Well, there is
documents such as loan documents and
Right.
those sort of things that.
We're gonna do a
Line of credit.
And we need them to sign on warnings and things like that would also be.
Thank you.
okay, yes, Patty.
Is it usually the officers?
It is typically the officers.
I make a motion, we have the officers be the authorized signature people, signatories.
Any other? All right. Any discussion on that motion?
None.
All right. All in favor of having the officers be the authorized signatories for the West River Modified Education District, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the ayes have it. Our paper of record. Patty?
I make a motion, we have the commons be our paper of record.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
What was that number?
Any discussion on, I'm sorry?
I was just gonna say, can we have a little conversation about that? Because I wanted to make sure that everybody, was aware that we had that email from them. I'm
Yes.
trying to pull it
Yeah,
up.
that's what I was
Yeah.
trying to pull up myself.
Which I thought was really interesting, and I wanted to, we have, in the past at Leland and Gray, gone through several different cycles of who we use for our paper of record. The reformer has always been our paper of record. There was a time under earlier management that we had some trouble with the reformer getting accurate warnings out and things like that. This was prior owners, years ago, in fact. And so we, at one year, said we were going to use the Commons, which was, the Commons was early in their years then, and the Brattleboro Reformer. Turned out, because of that, there was a cost, because if we named them both as paper of record and had to pay for warnings to be published, it was an additional cost. So we only did it that 1 year. In the meantime, and I'm dying to hear what you have to say, Rick, but I just wanted to say, one of the main reasons we went back to the reformer as opposed to staying with the Commons was that there was concern by the board, and you may remember it, but it may have been even before you, that with only a weekly, that it would challenge that. So I would just like to hear the feedback from that, and I'd also like to hear what Rick has to say too.
Well, the Commons themselves suggested that we name the Brattleboro, the reformer, as a secondary one. But are you saying then that will be an additional cost?
I believe if we name two, we then have to put the notice in two each time, and there would be an additional cost.
I don't know what it means when we say secondary.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
So if something's going to be happening before, we need to warn something and the commons isn't gonna be out in time to do that, we can use the reformer instead.
Does the Commons have an electronic version?
Yes.
Dated on July 17th, we got a letter.
Go ahead, Rick.
Jeff basically responded to that, and the way the towns, including Townsend, have set it up, the Commons is the paper of record. The Brattleboro Reformer is to be used as a backup when daily posts need to be done. Okay, I mean, that's pretty much how how now I'm skipping. Look at the camera pointing at me. That's basically how the motion has to be made, that the Commons be the paper of record with the Brattleboro Reformer being a backup for times when a weekly publication doesn't work. That way you don't have to worry about publishing it in two. And Towns has been dealing with the Commons now for, matter of fact, a year ago this March, there was a lot of discussion at the town level about the Reformer. And regrettably, they had to make a decision. But then I got in touch with Jeff, and Jeff presented basically what you got, except it's been updated. And I was able to give that to the Select Board in Townsend this year. So you had absolute details to work with instead of me just trying to throw something out. So this is why I had the email drafted for you. And it's just a matter of designating a secondary as a backup only. And that way you don't have to worry about publishing it in two papers.
So there'd be no requirement.
Right,
in the second
right.
one.
And there are going to be times, if you have to publish something 3 days in a row, then the Reformer's going to have to publish that. But it's working out fine for the town, for all kinds of advertising.
I think the Commons is a fantastic paper, I'd love to be able to support them.
I wondered about circulation, if there was a big difference in circulation. But I looked it up and it's almost exactly the same, just that, of course, the Reformer is daily and the Commons is once a week.
My
But
guess would be that the Commons has better circulation in this part. I mean, because, there are a lot of papers distributed up in this area. And I've talked to many town residents, and that's all they pick up, is the Commons. So, I think, and it's free, so you don't have to go out and buy it. So if your stuff is in the Commons, somebody's going to pick it up at the grocery store or any other locations, and it's going to be there in the paper. And I think more people are going to see what you post.
Can I read this one?
Sure.
I'll just say, because it follows up on that, this was a letter that we received from Jeff Potter. And he said, our distribution has grown to 10,500 copies weekly throughout Windham County. That's 233% of our initial distribution as a weekly. We distribute approximately 1,000 along the Route 30 corridor between Dummerston and Londonderry, which I thought was significant. And then numerous drop-offs in central
And the
commercial
Reformer is
corridors.
about 10,000 also.
Right. So,
And it is posted Wednesday morning digitally.
right.
And they do it it's really nice because it's a full PDF. And it's very easy.
So, I have one more question.
Sure.
It's for you,
Yeah.
Bill, from the perspective of the SU office, because most of our warnings go through the SU office. Is there any preference or recommendation from the SU?
I would just tell, we start using the Commons a lot more for advertising because it is widely distributed, it's free, and it's cheaper for us. So I would feel extremely comfortable working with the Commons.
Great.
Okay. All right, so we probably need to amend that motion then to,
Well, and if you could read it from Jeff's, that would be the way to read it. He's got it nailed.
Can I amend my own motion?
Mhm.
You got it there
Who
in paragraph.
seconded it? So-
Oh, I don't.
I did.
So you can do a friendly.
In that paragraph.
yeah, you can do a
He'll
friendly
say
amendment,
Point there.
as long as you're all in agreement.
Okay, so I amend my original motion to have the Commons be the newspaper of record with the Reformer as a secondary publication to be used for emergency warnings or for other requirements that we simply cannot, that the Commons simply cannot accommodate as a weekly.
Would you read the last
Sorry.
phraseology there, after warnings?
For warnings or for other requirements that the Commons cannot accommodate as a weekly paper.
Thank you.
Okay. Resecond that?
And I'll re-second it.
Okay, great.
You can second that one now if you want.
Okay, so any discussion on the revised motion? All All right, so all in favor of having the Commons be the paper of record with the Reformer as the secondary paper for things that the Commons can't meet the time deadline, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Yeah. Okay, meeting times and dates. We had originally agreed to do the third Monday. We can discuss any day you guys want. Although if we do that, we should look at the other boards so that we're not trampling on another board.
Discussion.
Yes.
One thing I'd also like us to consider when we're coming up with our times, and I'm fine with the third Monday in every month, is to make sure that we get our times aligned with the other people in the district, like the athletics director, to make sure, because I heard last year there was a conflict between a huge basketball game, like the finals, and a board meeting. So we're not just talking to other boards, but the other stakeholders. If we want community members to participate, we want to make sure.
Well,
And I don't know how
if we pick the third Monday,
Right.
we have no control over whether
Yeah.
that becomes a
Yeah.
huge
Mhm.
basketball playoff
Right.
game
Right.
That'll
or
happen.
a huge snow day or a
But they'll
choral
know a
concert.
year in advance.
You know, they'll know a year in advance
Right.
because we'll always be on that day.
So we need to make sure if there's a way for us to communicate with other stakeholders
Absolutely.
in this community to make sure that if they're able to renegotiate their times.
Yeah,
I just think it's
Yeah.
if we want community participation.
right.
Um,
I think we're up against, in some places, we're just up against things that
Yes.
are carved in stone.
Right.
That's fine.
You know, basketball schedules are probably actually done for next
Right.
year already.
Yeah, depending upon who wins.
Mhm.
And then the playoff stuff,
the
it's,
playoffs.
you know,
Yes.
how'd you do, right,
Yeah.
yeah.
By the way, you're playing next Monday.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
I will be communicating that to all the principals, all the other boards.
yeah, that'll be out in the warnings and it'll be posted WCSU and then
But that's
probably go
it's a
out
very,
in school
very valid
newsletters as, you know, because we're gonna be, you
I mean,
know,
one
we'll be over
entity-
all those schools, so it'll
Right.
probably go in each school district's,
Calendar.
you know, little Thursday notes or Friday notes or Monday notes or whatever they all have.
And if
And one-
if we, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
if we conflict with somebody, I'm sure they'll let us know.
Oh, yeah.
as
And
they
And
have
can
in
we,
the past.
as a board, make a decision that if there's gonna be a huge conflict, are we able to amend our times, or is that gonna create more confusion, and will that convolute things, or is that something that is simple to do?
This,
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say that this is a decision we're making right now, but eventually this will go into our warning for our annual meeting, and
Right.
we will be making that decision by annual meeting. And once you've done that, you need the annual meeting to make that kind of change. It's a pretty significant decision, I think, and it's not easy to change it when people start to get used to when your
Right.
meetings are being held. I don't worry about this at all. I think, you know, we can change it if we need to at some point down the future, but these are our board meetings and the board makes those decisions. And I don't think that this is a problem.
No.
I
And you
think we
can't
can change it.
them off and
Well,
on,
it-
because then
it
people
doesn't
don't
matter.
really know when they
Right,
happen.
right. It doesn't matter. If we change it, it's going to be a challenge, and we're going to conflict with somebody, because we all worry about being on the same night as our select board, which we were just talking about. This is one of the new things, select board meeting nights. I think Windham board meets
Jamaica.
Yeah,
on-
first and third,
on the first and
Jamaica's the
third
second
Monday.
Yeah, and
But
I
they
mean,
meet
there's
early
school
enough that-
board.
Well, it'll run into ours though. They usually meet at 6:30.
So,
We're talking about,
she's talking about select.
I'm talking about select board, that's what Emily was
That's
talking
what I
Oh,
was
okay.
mentioning. School board also meets
Yeah,
on a Monday
that's
as well, but
earlier.
they meet earlier.
That's the first.
That's the first.
Bill, what I'm truly concerned about is not conflicting with other school board meetings, and the third Monday doesn't conflict with any other school board meetings. Can I also say, we're going to, in another short period of time, I know it feels like a long period of time, but in a short period of time, there's a lot of meetings that are going to go away,
Yeah.
When?
down the road.
It's
You know, because our boards will not be meeting anymore, right? There's,
Right.
the one meeting at this point in time that'll still continue is the Monday, Windham,
Another year, Bill.
but that's still earlier.
2 years.
2 years, 19.
Year and a half.
Well, it'll go.
Year and a half.
It'll fly by.
They will fly by.
Are we keeping Wednesdays clear for special special in Windham Central?
Yes.
Okay.
Wednesdays
And
are
and
open.
I'm sure if
Are you
some,
good
if
for
something, if something comes up, like there's a basketball final or
kid.
something here, you know.
We'll always
two
run
We'll
years.
just, if we have to run the meeting, we run the meeting, but we just make sure there's something that isn't really controversial that needs to be, you know.
We'll meet at another location.
Right.
Yeah, and we'll most likely be in the library, so we won't conflict too much with school.
We've done it many times.
Well, I just mean for input from,
Yes.
you know,
We can move our meetings for one meeting too.
right, yeah. So
I
if we
just wanted
had,
to
right.
make sure that we were able to.
Well, yeah, and I would
Special
point out that if this board becomes highly effective, then it will allow the other single district boards to do work that wouldn't have to be duplicated here. For example, Leland and Gray will be producing their last budget, along with Townsend producing their last budget, and Jamaica producing their last budget, and Newbrook producing their last budget. Next year, at this time, in 18, those school boards will not be doing that. This board will be doing that. So that changes dramatically what those school boards' responsibilities will be. So you, being a really highly functional, productive, innovative group, are really providing a gift to all of your fellow citizens on other boards.
Totally agree.
It's fantastic.
That's the way it's
We're
gonna work.
committed to that.
That's,
Okay, so third Monday, 7 PM.
Got it.
Did you make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
okay.
I'll second it.
And just to clarify, here, right, Leland and Gray, for now?
For now, at Leland and Gray, I
Okay.
wanna look at possibly exploring, being we have 5 different, you know.
I think that makes sense to do once we start,
Right.
once we
Right,
become
yeah, exactly,
operational.
but just, I just wanna keep on record saying
Yeah,
that,
I
you
agree.
know, we might, you know, cause I'm interested to see what's going on in Jamaica and what's going on in Townsend and, you know.
I'm hoping we'll know that even if we're here.
Do it during
I-
the summer months, the good weather.
We should.
I would also like to coordinate, if possible, getting childcare provided during meetings, so that people who have small children are able to come to meetings. And that's something that I'd be happy to help organize. I know that there is a community service requirement at the high school, correct? And so if I can connect with that person, I'd like to work on that.
Carrie Davidson Berger
Thank you.
at Leland and Gray
Oh, yeah, I know.
is the coordinator for that. I think it's a fantastic idea.
BERGER?
Yes.
Okay, so, it's been moved and seconded to have the meeting time be the seven PM, third Monday of each month at Leland and Gray. Is there any discussion on that now that we actually have a motion?
Beat it to death.
Yeah. All right, all in favor of the third Monday, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right,
Just to
abstentions?
clarify, Ken, you said you wanted something on the record. Were you serious about
That possibly we can move the meeting place to different schools in the
After
future,
we're operational.
once we're up and operational, so we can see what's going on in the other schools.
Okay, appointment of a truant officer. That's typically Windham County, right?
Yeah, no, it's Windham County Sheriff would be
Windham
my
County Sheriff.
recommendation.
Okay.
So moved.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint the Windham County Sheriff as our official truant officer. Any discussion on that?
I just have a question, and I'll be happy with a really brief answer. How effective is that? How effective is the truant officer?
They're fantastic.
Okay,
The moment I call them, they're there,
I have no idea, I just
Oh,
was
yeah.
curious about
on a
that.
dime. They're
Okay.
fantastic.
Who seconded it, I'm sorry?
I think it was me.
Emily?
Thank you.
All right. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of the Windham County Sheriff as the truant officer, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? They have a job. We need a policy committee member for the WCSU Policy Committee. Yes, Bill?
So both H and I are gonna be, until the WCSU board reorganizes with the new boards, you can't have duplicity of representation. So
So we're not appointing anybody yet.
you aren't gonna, H and I are simply if you wanna go and watch, but you will not appoint people at the WCSU Policy Committee until the WCSU decides on what the representation is from whatever happens legally past June of 2018.
Okay.
Can you explain? I do not know what those,
So
Things
there are, the WCSU Policy Committee is a standing committee of the Windham Central Supervisory Union Board for policies. And the Windham Central Supervisory Union representatives are the voting members that participate in the Windham Central Supervisory Union Board. But because this board does not become operational until July 1st, 2019.
We're not going to represent.
Exactly.
Right, makes sense.
So I would
So,
suggest to you that we do not want to take action on H and
okay,
So we'll pass.
What does
So we-
H&I stand for?
I.
those
On
are
the
the
agenda.
agenda item.
The agenda item H and agenda item
Designations.
I.
Oh,
I'll get
Yeah, typically each board has 3 voting representatives on the WCSU board.
okay.
There are 3 Leland and Gray
Thank
voting
you.
representatives, 3 towns, and 3
Got it.
Jamaica. And then everybody has those 3 votes on that board. And then those decisions that are made at the supervisory union level, each district, each school has equal weight, as long as you're operating. The non-operating, and we don't even have that anymore.
Yes, you do. Stratton.
Oh, that's
is
right,
still
Stratton.
part of
I'm
it.
sorry, I forgot Stratton. They're asking to
are?
leave,
Well,
but they haven't left yet. I forgot Stratton. I apologize,
part of the
Stratton.
options that Stratton has.
Okay.
They only get 1 vote
Okay.
because they're non-operating.
Would
But
they end up
So that's like that's like the super board above us being the super board. Okay.
No, you guys are just a board.
We're not super?
yeah, that's
None
what
of
everybody
us
calls
It's
us.
a whole new.
We're fantastic,
We're fantastic. Got it.
What
Okay.
did Stratton end up with?
but I think we should have
You're with
somebody
us.
in charge of policy
Still.
for this
Yeah.
district.
Yes, and I'm gonna suggest that under 3.
Under new business. What was one of
They didn't
Stratton's
go with
options to go where?
Arlington and all that.
Bennington.
stuff.
Stratton has many options. So right now, do you want me to, can we finish this?
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
finish this. Patty asked it was like.
All right,
a
well, I'll
tangent.
answer it.
Yeah,
Okay.
later. Okay, you have this on update current board
So normally
numbers?
at this point, I would hand out a sheet, I would get all your data, but you guys have already been coming as a gathering of citizens, so I have all your information. We
Okay.
have a universal email that goes to you, so that's what would normally happen at that point.
Okay,
And I just left it there in case anything changed. Just covering
All
my
right.
bases.
so we can move on to new business. Anybody from this board can feel free to go to the WCSU meetings. You're
And-
not a
and in
voting
fact-
member, you can listen, you can speak.
Yeah.
It may be something you're interested in, you just won't be a voting member.
They aren't televised, are they?
They aren't currently.
They are not
That would be
currently
up to the
televised.
WCSU board.
Well,
And the next one is the really good one. That's the retreat. There's dinner and everything.
Good times, man.
Yeah. You have something you want to?
I just, something that is missing from the agenda and the opportunity to add something to the agenda. Now that we have gone through the election of officers, would it be appropriate under new business to do that?
Yeah, we need to add the additions and corrections piece to the standing agenda, but we can add it under new business.
Okay.
The policy thing?
I've got a piece I would like you to add under new business,
Sure.
and we'll call it definition of Wyndham's rights, and I'll explain it when you get to it.
Okay, so we're gonna make that D.
I thought D was policies.
Well, that's the first one.
Oh,
Make that
I
E.
added that one earlier. D is.
All right, Ken, you got E?
Ken, you want to add something to the agenda?
Yeah, well, no, just policies.
Okay, got it. Anybody else have anything they want to add under new business? Mr. Anton?
For F, school-based councils.
This is the advisory, the school advisory type thing?
Yeah, I just have some information I'd like to give to the board so that you can put it on a future agenda item.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. So, the first item under new business is the Marlboro Support 2x2x1. Do we,
That's the letter.
okay. Has this gone to everybody?
No, because we didn't have a board.
Okay, I thought they sent it out to everybody who was a board member prior to the last meeting. hoping they
That,
could-
I believe, has been sent to your university email, but it wasn't
Yeah.
highlighted, you
Okay.
know.
So Marlboro has a memorandum here that they've sent us, and I know that this has been discussed at the Windham Central Supervisory Union level. And Marlboro is proposing to remain an existing district under the guidelines established in the revisions to Act 46 by the legislature in 2017. They're talking, the route that they are proposing to follow is to apply as a supervisory union to become a 2x2x1 side by side with the River Valley School District, which is the Dover and Wardsboro merged district, and the West River Modified Education District, which is, Newfane, Brookline, Townsend, Jamaica, as the other two. That will in effect become a merged supervisory union with 3 elementary districts instead of the current arrangement, because Marlboro would, and actually that leaves out Windham, so it would really be 4 in the supervisory union, right?
Sorry, sorry.
He's saying, the memo says that that would in effect become a merged supervisory union with 3 elementary districts instead of the current arrangement. But it's really 4, because Windham would also be in there as an elementary district. So it would be Marlboro, Windham, Dover, and Wardsboro as 1 elementary district, and then we would be the 4th running
That's
an
right.
elementary.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I wondered too.
Okay.
Or are we a K, whatever, so we don't
We're
count as an
K.
elementary?
Yeah,
We're
you're a
K-12.
K through 12,
We're K-12.
Okay, so there's 3 elementary and a K-12?
right.
Okay, so it's 3, anyway.
Well,
But
But
They-
their elementary is different, they go to 8.
Eight.
Right,
And everybody
that's
else
why
goes to
they're-
6,
So
does that,
under
how does that?
Vermont statute,
Okay.
K6 or K8 is still referred to as elementary.
And because they didn't have any merger partners that were
Right.
close, and they really didn't wanna give up their 7 and 8,
Yep.
they're now
Choice,
going the
Alternative.
the
governance
alternative
structure.
structure route.
They're not operating any schools either, are they?
Who?
Is that Marlboro, or am I thinking of one of the other
You're
ones?
No,
You're thinking
Marlboro,
of somebody else.
Strike.
Marlboro
Open
operates.
space, K,
Okay,
pre-K.
So Marlboro now, under the stipulations of Act 46, has to present its case to the Board of Education, talking about how they meet the goals of Act 46 with this new structure as an existing district. And they're preparing documentation for this for the Board of Ed. It's due by the end of August, and they have a consultant and everything. Marlboro's paying for it. They've got a grant from some other people from some local people in Marlboro. And, they say it's their intention to make this application as trouble-free as possible for other members of the SU. The Act 46 revisions also stipulate that the other districts with which Marlboro plans to merge must vote to accept this arrangement by September 1st, 2017. They plan to have their paperwork completed by then and have the application before the Board of Education, and they will be asking each of the newly merged districts to place this vote on the agenda of their first meeting so that they can comply with the law in this instance and have these votes recorded as soon as possible. And then they say thank you for being supportive of Marlboro, and anybody can have this memo.
We,
And everybody-
Summarize.
we had it all
We have
emailed.
it.
Yeah,
We have it.
okay.
We all
And
have
if
it.
anybody wants it.
Yeah, and if anybody wants it, we can get it to you. It'll be on our website, won't it, as correspondence?
It should be.
It should be.
I don't think we need a motion or anything on that, right? I wish them luck.
Not
They,
yet.
No, I think we do.
need
We
a
do.
vote
They do.
Well, we need a
from us
motion.
in support of the 2x2 by
At
1
least our
structure.
August meeting.
They would, since they have to have it by September, they would need it on the agenda for our August meeting unless we were willing to, make that motion and support their 2x2x1 tonight.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to support their 2x2x1 district.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion on that?
Is there any downside to that?
Emily, you have a question?
I just wanted to say, if one side of the two or the other did not support this, there's still another path for them as a 3x1 as well, which would require our.
You guys are the go, no go.
We would be the go, no go. That's what I wanted to be
Yeah.
clear on, because right now, they're asking for 2x2x1, which I think is great. I'm glad that they want to bring all of us together.
Yeah.
But if we say no, they cannot go forward. But if Dover, Wardsboro said no,
Then they would,
they could still move forward with a 3x1, because we would be a 3.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Dover and Wardsboro are not 3.
Right,
policy.
right,
So
I understand.
that's what I just want to make sure was clear.
Patty?
And for people who may not know, Marlboro has been with the Windham Central Supervisory Union. This is not an unusual thing of them coming along with us.
No,
It's
they've been
just
part of the
because,
WCSU.
yeah, they utilize the services of Windham Central and stuff. It's just they run a different model of school, so. And they have school choice in high school too, but,
9, yeah, they have school choice 9 to 12.
yeah.
You have a question?
Yeah, I mean, you're sitting here talking about voting on something which really doesn't seem to have an impact on you, and I know the state's playing games and everybody's playing games, but I really gotta ask, why are you voting on this? You're not involved. I know they need you to vote on it. I know the state, or they need you to vote on it so the state will pass it through, but, you know.
If we say no, we don't want a K-8 district in our district,
Okay,
they
go ahead,
can't
you have the
form
legislative.
with us, they'll have to move to another district.
I believe, if I can just say, I believe the law states that to take advantage of the 3x1 or the 2x2x1, all districts involved need to vote to support. So if we just said, great, we like them here, it wouldn't comply. That we actually need to go officially and say that we support them participating in Windham Central as an alternative governance structure under the 2x2x1 structure or the 3x1 structure. I think that's a part of the law.
See, my problem with it, personally, is I see Marlboro being selfish. I'll just lay that out. They've got what they want. They voted not to do anything, technically. And then they're asking you to participate in their selfishness. I mean, and you know, I'm just, that's cold and hard, but that's essentially what they're doing. We don't want to play, but we want your help.
So I'm not here to defend or anything like that, but I will just explain that under Act 46, there is the alternative governance structure process. And it doesn't mean that they're not playing. That's, I think, a misunderstanding. They still have to meet the goals of the law. And it isn't easy, I don't believe. The structure, and Bill, you can talk about a little more about what they're going through, and Windham as well. But there are some very specific goals in the law that even if you're doing alternative governance structure, you still have to meet those goals of the law and go through an approval process to get that. So it's not like they're not participating, they're just taking a different path to go forward. And the reason why, I mean, I recognize why people might feel what you just described, but Marlboro is different from the rest of us in that they are a part of our SU, but they're the only K-8 in the SU, and so they don't have a natural partner. Where, and so there's no partner for them in Windham Central under the goals, under the law, Act 46. For Dover and Wardsboro, they did have a partner. For the rest of us, we all had a partner. Marlboro didn't. So they found themselves in a more challenging situation. So they did investigate merging. And in fact, they went through a pretty long, lengthy, thorough process to do away with the 7th and 8th grade operating, go to choice for 7th and 8th grade. They had many meetings and they spoke to their community, and their community made the decision, not the board, but I would say it was the community who, through a process, and a lengthy process, said they didn't want to give up their 7th and 8th grade operating middle school. So that's sort of where we got to this place, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands that they really do have to meet the goals of the law, which are significant, I would say. And they run the risk still of being refused by the Agency of Education, the state board. Just my perspective.
I have a question. Are there any other downsides, this was mentioned, are there any other downsides to doing this? As long as we're discussing it.
I don't see a downside at all.
I would ask
To say yes.
to see
Yes,
you-
to say
So
yes to
support
it.
the 2 by 2 by
Well,
1.
are there any problems with saying yes? Any considerations?
So, I mean, you can think about it in a multitude of ways. I mean, so where you will end up is you will have a supervisory union if it all played out, that had the same members, your WCSU board would look different. So I would say that that is something that you should keep in mind, because you're gonna have 4 boards. If Windham stayed independent, you would have 5 boards. So whatever that compilation of members of the WCSU, that would be different. On the flip side, if you remove Marlboro, which is, I believe, around 8 or 9% of the population of the supervisory union, I wouldn't foresee that you can cut 8 or 9% of the services that are being provided. So that means that the costs could rise for the remaining districts. I think that the study and the process that Marlboro has to go through, that they have invited me to participate, which is very nice, really creates the articulation of why Marlboro wants to be a part of the WCSU, not why Marlboro doesn't want to be. They have to be very intentional about their commitments and their beliefs, about why it is beneficial to be a part of this group that they've already been a part of. Plus, they have to articulate why being a part of this group not only keeps the foundation of the status quo, but improves opportunities for Marlboro students and the partnering team. So I think that is a really valuable reflection that is going on. I think that Rick makes a very valid point of the challenge of making change when you have different structures. And I would say that being K-8 has made that a bridge much farther than any other bridge that had to be considered of members of the WCSU. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Okay.
those are the considerations, I would say.
Right.
And as Joe pointed out, it is not necessary to vote tonight. And this might be something you want to think about so that you could vote in August. But that is up to the board's, will. There is time to have that. You could ask Marlboro to come. You could ask them to, would you please
Give a
visit us at
presentation.
our August meeting and make the formal request, and then you guys could ask questions at that time. I mean, you're not under the gun of having to do it, and I think you're being very thoughtful about wanting to make a very considered decision.
You had a question, Patty?
Well, I was just, Emily kind of covered mine, but they worked very hard during the study committee, and they participated 100%. I wasn't part of that, but I watched all the study committee things, and they really wholeheartedly wanted to make it work, but the stumbling block was the 7 and 8. They just didn't want to give that up. And I understand that, and that was a choice of the community, and again, we would lose that financial support for the constant costs of the WCSU if we didn't have them, which is something to consider too.
Joe? Yeah, I would just add that a quorum of the board came to your
They do.
a special meeting.
Mhm.
If Mr. Anton had prepared a agenda for you to have the organization meeting afterwards, they were prepared to then talk with you and answer any questions for you. So they're very engaged in answering any questions and fully participating in being a full-fledged member of Windham Central. Very active.
Anything further? There is a motion to, was it accept, approve? What did you say, Ken?
To accept the request to form a 2x2x2.
2 by 2 by 1.
2 by 2 by 1.
2x2x1.
Right, and
2 by
there
2
is,
by
there
4.
is a motion to accept the request of Marlboro to become a 2 by 2 by 1 with us and Dover and Wardsboro. So, if we have no more discussion, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? All right, the Ayes have it. We'll let Doug know that we have voted to support their 2x2x1 structure with Marlboro School Board, I guess. Okay, the next item is the VSBA consulting contract.
So, if you guys all got a copy of an email to Bill, and then something that you've probably seen too many times, I keep giving it to you, the VSBA
Marlboro
template.
Board Retreat, Part 1,
Yeah.
2.
Yep.
So,
So,
agenda.
just to catch you back up again, the consultant that you guys have met with before as a gathering of citizens is leaving the VSBA. In fact, he's already gone. But you and only you, he is willing to begin this process with prior to September 1st.
Good old Harry.
So if the board wishes to engage in this process, it's 2 meetings, and Harry Frank, who you guys have met with already, would facilitate the first one, and then VSBA would have their education director, who are their new education director, finish the second one. And those are the possible dates that Harry could do.
Oh, so we're not trying to squeeze 2 dates out of Harry?
No.
Okay.
Would it not be better to have the same person be
It is
doing
completely up to you guys.
My
I'm just saying you
understanding that
have
we were
until
going to-
September 1st.
So I thought we were gonna have him for the process, but that's now not true.
Well,
Um,
if you get both meetings in before September 1st, that will happen. If you do not get both meetings in before September 1st, it's possible.
Yeah.
But he can't know for sure because he started his new job and he's diving into that new job.
Well, and his dates are pretty, they're pretty
So
sparse.
it's possible.
He's got
I-
2
But
weeks in the end
I
of
cannot
August,
guarantee
and
that.
he's got a little bit in the beginning of August.
Do we
and
have
2
to do
days
this?
in July.
Do we have to do this before September 1st? Or is it just to get Harry?
Can we do it with someone
It
else?
would be helpful.
Yeah, we can get another VSBA consultant.
Absolutely.
I say break in a new one.
Yeah,
You know, I agree that it's probably very useful to have the same consultant do both.
Yes.
You know,
I think
Well,
so.
I mean,
And these dates are.
and I'm not sure that those dates are gonna work with Harry.
none of the first 4 I could do clearly work. And so we're talking about the week of the 21st and the 28th of August, really? And that's-
The last 2 weeks
Yeah,
of summer
I-
before school starts.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned
School
about.
starts by the 20th.
I think there's value to consistency with the same
Yes.
Yeah.
consultant for this process.
Yep.
That's all I would say. I think Harry does a fantastic job, and I think, he's served us well. He worked with us at Leland and Gray. I
Mhm.
think that's
And he got the
been
juices
great.
flowing for you guys.
He did.
He did.
But I have concerns about switching consultants
Yeah.
partway through it.
So then
Yeah.
the secondary one would be, if the board is committed to doing
Wait till see.
the work, there is a contract that you all could authorize the superintendent to sign. Did I give it to you?
You did.
And I believe it is $1,000 plus mileage.
Yep.
Okay.
Scope of the service, agree with the work of the
And
superintendent.
if the board directed the superintendent to sign that, then I could start arranging.
And now that we're officially a board, do we have an account yet?
So I met with our
Has the state coughed up their share yet?
business manager today, and we officially requested, we had to wait till you guys were organized, but I did it already today.
Okay.
So we have officially requested it, and we have set up 2, one for River Valley and one for West River.
Well, I would suggest we don't schedule anything until the check's in the bank.
You're covered.
Um,
Anybody want to take a look at the contract? It is $1,000 plus 54 cents a month.
Is that right? Okay. That's what I thought.
and this is for 2 meetings?
Yeah, sure. It's 2 sessions, 2 to 3 hours per session. Go ahead.
Have you had a conversation with VSBA about this and so do you get input into the consultant, or is it just they send us somebody, or what? I mean, there are.
So
are
they're
they
in
using-
transition, right?
So, well, I understand that, and I mean, I'm on the board still, but I I guess what I'm trying to get at, are they waiting for their new one to come in, or are they pulling from the pool of consultants that are actually now doing different types of work?
I have no idea.
So you don't know the answer to that question, and so it could be a brand-new person coming in and with a lot of demands on them, or it might be someone we're pulling from.
I don't know.
You think we should wait until things
I don't know,
settle
I
out
think
at
it
the
would,
VSBA?
I have no idea what the status is of hiring someone. I'm sure they'll find a good person for that position. I'm not worried about that at all. I'm just kind of thinking, is there any way we would have some
Say
ability
it.
to request? Or to say yes or no to a consultant that's being recommended?
I think it would be very reasonable for me to be able to say, who's the pool of possibilities?
Yeah.
Can we get resumes of them?
Sure.
And then I can bring that back to the board, and then the board can make a decision of who they want to work with. If we're not in a rush,
Right.
right, then maybe that would be a good August
I
activity.
was saying, can we,
It might be.
So it might be a two
It's an
thing.
important
One is,
position.
yeah,
you guys give me permission to engage VSBA, and you direct me to collect the possibilities to be reviewed at the next meeting.
Is that something we could add to the contract, that this board gets final decision on who are?
Well, I cannot sign it until you
They-
guys approve it.
They would have to support that,
I
and
mean,
she's already
we
signed
can ask-
this
Yeah.
contract, so.
I mean, I can just have that conversation.
yeah,
Yeah,
we
I
don't
think
need to
you
add it
should.
in the contract. But yeah,
Because it's just 2 meetings and that's a
You want it to
lot
be
to put in.
really
2
worthwhile.
meetings. You want someone who's pretty
So you
well.
need a two-part motion here, one to authorize the superintendent to sign the consulting agreement
Yeah. the VSBA.
with the VSBA, and to collect data on potential consultants and bring the data to the board at a later date. That's my motion.
August if possible.
Later date's awesome.
Yeah.
Gives me flexibility.
I'm just adding my own
Good
pressure.
motion.
Is there a second for Ken's motion?
Second.
Any further discussion on that? All right, all in favor of authorizing Bill to sign the consulting agreement with the VSBA and start investigating our consultants and report back at a later date, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, you're on. You want both of those, right? You're welcome. So the next item, we talk about approving the minutes of 6/26, but those will really only be approved at the next annual meeting. We should probably just make the corrections, and then the moderator and the temporary presiding officer and the recording clerk and, you know, the official clerk will all sign off on them at some point, and then we can accept them at our next annual meeting. The only corrections I've seen are that, you know, Al and I were not elected to the chair, to the offices after our name. Peter was prescient.
Little subliminal advertising there.
Well, there was a meeting
I know. But other than that, I didn't see any inaccuracies or anything that had to be corrected in that. Anybody else? Okay, so if we make those corrections, then Bill, you can get them signed off by the various and sundry parties.
Yeah, and we'll bring, I mean, I'll have them for you guys next time, just so that.
Okay.
They're signed and you can put them in your books. Now, you see that Al, did you bring your book? Okay. You guys probably need new header pages though.
Hey,
Look at
just
it.
so you know.
Okay, all right, good job.
It
Sorry.
works, it works.
I'd be lost without this book, actually.
You're like, oh, and only Al. It's like, oh, no.
Yeah, right. Everybody.
We all got it. Okay, so item D added is the definition of Wyndham's rights.
Okay,
Please.
basically, ever since the red started being discussed, the whole issue of Windham was quite confusing. Now that you are officially a board and it's officially a district, I would request that the board either do or designate be done in writing a chart or a listing of what Windham has the right to do, what Windham will be able to vote on, what will be able to discuss. Because, as we all know, there are some tricky issues here. And to me, it's too unclear. So something that lays out what Windham can and cannot do, essentially, would be extremely helpful to the public.
Go ahead, Emily.
I think that's an absolutely great suggestion and very appropriate. I think that we're not plowing new ground. We're plowing fairly new ground, but not new ground, because there has been a modified unified union school district up in Chittenden East for quite some time now, 3 years, I think, 2 or 3 years. So could we find out, either have Joe contact them or Bill, to find out whether they have a definition for it's Huntington?
Yeah.
Actually, Harry Frank lives in Huntington.
So, two things. One is, yes, so John
Yeah, John.
Abergini
Abergini.
is the superintendent there.
Yeah.
And he is giving a workshop for the other 4 superintendents on this exact issue. We are looking for a date in August, but I can contact him prior. But I mean, I think it's a fantastic one, because the board needs to know what is available, what is possible when questions come up that are pre-K through 12, and ones that are specific, you know what I mean?
And that's it. I'm not putting a rush on it,
Oh,
but
no,
this
no.
is your first meeting. And I thought, starting at the very beginning, now is the time to think about clarifying this.
And I think Rick's suggestion to get something eventually in writing would be really,
I think
really
writing,
helpful.
right,
And a nice
I
visual.
demand it in writing, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I like writing.
Well, I just think it would be much clearer for us and for the communities that we represent.
Yes,
Sorry.
Patty.
And it would make board meetings potentially a little shorter than having to sit there and try and say,
Try to
but
get-
this mentioned Leland and Gray, as opposed to this, you
Well,
know, and
trust
it's
me, we
right
can
in
write it
writing,
down and carve it in
it's-
stone, and there will
But
still
there's
be
to be
some
some
argument about
discussion.
whether or not
Yeah.
this pertains or doesn't pertain, or the right exists, or whatever.
But it'll be a little more clear
It might be.
than mud.
Let's hope.
So
Just be silly.
I'm wondering if there, because of that conversation we just had, organizations can operate under bylaws. That's one of the things I would ask you when you're looking into this, Bill, to find out whether there can be some specific clarity around, I don't know whether bylaws or whatever, around minimizing that sort of an incident. Because I think there's real value in having this in writing, and the more clarity we can have in writing, the better. So that we have norms to operate under. That's what I'm
Agreed.
mostly concerned about.
Great question.
So are we gonna have to come budget time, split our budget, right, obviously, because
There'll be, the
There's three.
K-12, right, there'll be
the K-12 budget, you have to have an elementary budget and the high school budget.
So, no, it'll be the K-12 budget, and which Windham will participate in that only at the high school level, supposedly. And then which I think we do have to keep it separate now.
Yes, you do.
Because there's no
For-
way to keep them, but he'll find out all about that. And then Windham and Marlboro, potentially, and Windham Central will have an elementary budget.
Because they have to for John Evans.
Well, actually,
John
so
Right,
does-
but we won't
so
have
does
anything to do with that.
Wardsboro.
But
Actually,
there's,
so does Wardsboro.
I'm going August 10th.
The meeting is August 10th?
August 10th.
Great, so I think that's.
so put a budget,
So for our
high school
next
budget
August meeting,
will
you'll have all the
to be
answers.
Separately also, just for
I
Yeah.
will have something.
And a lot more questions.
I'm really looking forward to his feedback from this.
I will have something. Okay.
Okay.
While we're on, Wyndham, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Bill, could you update us at all on the status of their alternative governance structure process that they're going through? Has there been any update on what Wyndham's doing? Because right now, they're participating in our modified unified union school district, but they are investigating moving out of that, I think, or I don't know if they're actually moving out, but they're looking at an alternative governance structure.
So they have formed a alternative governance structure committee,
Yeah,
and they are exploring their options
Right.
of making the case to the State Board of Education to really maintain the MUD structure.
Okay, so
They
they're
are
not
not-
asking to leave the modified unified
No.
union
No.
school district? Okay, so
They are
they still
just,
wanna
they're
stay.
trying to get an audience with the State Board of Education
Okay.
to make the case that this structure is the structure they want to stay.
That's the clarity I needed there.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
As is, without
The
Windham
mud.
Elementary.
Mud.
No, the MUD.
Because
Rather
the
than just a straight up
alternative
union
is,
school
I
district.
think this is an
That's
important
what I'm
part.
saying.
The alternative is that when the state board does their final statewide plan,
Yes.
they could actually, unless this goes forward and is approved by the state board, they could actually be subject to being
Added.
forced
Melded.
to be a part of our
Yes.
unified school district.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so
which-
they,
Which is
which,
further complicated by Act 49, which
Right.
added the $10,000 acceptance of boards to accept people that are, because
Orphan.
they could be treated like an orphan.
yes, they,
And then technically this board, and I would guess this would be right on the chart, Nancy wouldn't get a vote on it. Of whether you would even accept them.
right.
And so that would have to be a legal clarification because you kind of have, the State Board of Education has the power, but now with Act 49, it says that the board receiving the other district will receive $10,000 and gives that indication that the board could say no.
And I would also say that under Act 49, Windham also, this is sort of goes along with Ken's thoughts about different budgets and stuff. Windham does not receive the tax incentives as
That is
well
very clear.
for the high, you know, so- and that's new under Act 49 this year. That was not true before, but now we passed a law that says
Yes.
they will not receive the incentives that the other four towns get because they didn't merge
Correct.
with our high school.
That's right.
district.
And they're not eligible for a merger grant,
Exactly.
which is separate from the September 30th designation of whether you are geographically, and
Isolated.
it's not even geographically,
No,
isolated.
it's
What's the
not.
term now?
I don't-
It's September 30th.
The date is to look into.
Right. It's a
being able to-
definition.
A definition to receive your small schools grant.
Exactly.
Speaking of tax incentives, when do we start receiving property tax relief, the 1086?
So it's
42.
8642,
Right,
and that, once you guys are July 1st, 2019,
that's
your,
when the ball.
your
starts.
budget of 1920 will factor in those incentives.
Yeah, so not for a while.
So the original act, they rolled that timeline forward.
Well, so if you were preferred and you were operating on 2017, it's happening right now.
Yeah.
If you're preferred and you operate 2018, it'll happen then.
Mhm.
And if you're us, it'll happen in 2019.
Yes, Patty.
I just have one more question about Windham. Now, if they, does them being part of the Windham Central Supervisory Union, does that supersede anything that the state might say? Because if they wanted to leave now, wouldn't everybody have to vote to allow them out?
So
If they
again,
want
just
to
to
leave the
clarify,
SU.
Windham is not asking to be
Right.
removed from the Leland and Gray Union School District.
Right.
Or-
I know.
or-
And they're not asking to be removed from the newly formed
Right.
West River
Yeah.
Modified Union Education
But if
District.
the state
Nor are they
said-
asking to leave the SU.
Nor are they asking to leave the Windham Central Supervisory Union. They are
Right.
simply making their
Yeah.
case that as the West River Modified Unified Education District is currently constructed,
Yeah.
they would like it to stay the same
Right.
in terms of Windham.
So odds are, there's no reason that, but would that supersede, if the state said no, that they can't do that, can they?
Well, the State Board of Education has the power to move school districts to different supervisory unions.
Without a vote of the,
Yeah, that fully rests in the State Board of
that
Education.
supersedes our voting.
They can move to Springfield if they wanted to.
Oh. I mean, not that they
Further
would, but.
musings?
I think I'm gonna just.
Okay, so we don't need a motion on that, do we? We just need Bill look into that?
Well, so I mean, I think you have a citizen who has made a request of the board, and then the board has requested the superintendent to report back at the next meeting about where we are in responding to the citizens' request.
And we know you're going to the August 10th meeting, and you should gather some good data there, and
And we'll
there
see
you
where
are.
we're at to
Yeah.
get to where we need to be. Does
Okay.
that sound, are we on there?
Yeah.
Can I ask, I'm sorry, I just wanna ask one more question, because
Go
you're
ahead,
the
yeah.
only authority here on what's going on, unless you have a clue what's going on up in Windham, but our bylaws, our articles of agreement allow for Windham, I'm trying to remember how we worded it, Windham was allowed to leave, to make the decision, if they had joined, we couldn't close their school. If they
Oh,
had fully
yeah,
joined, we
yeah.
couldn't close their school
And
without a vote of the community, and that's true of all of us,
That is
right?
Right.
So I guess what I'm wondering is, how does, now that they are part of us as a, modified unified union school district, that's still the, I'd have to go back and review our articles,
So-
but that's still in place. And how does that get changed under their alternative, does it get changed under their proposal for alternative governance structure? It sounds to me like if the town of Windham at some point made a decision that we want to become either part of this, or we say we wanna close our school, or we wanna merge with another school, or we wanna do whatever we wanna do, that, none of that is being challenged through their alternative governance structure. They're still fine with everything that they had agreed to.
That would, yeah, I think all of those things are correct. That all of that still resides with the citizens of Windham.
Okay.
At a
that's what I'm
meeting
asking.
in Wardsboro, Donna Russo Savage clarified this whole thing a whole lot. And we hear a lot of schools really uptight about, can the board close the school?
Right.
And by state statute right now, she says the town still has to vote.
Right. Right.
So we
We
can
just-
say whatever
Well,
we
and
want.
we
in your
clarified that
warning,
in our
in warning in
articles.
section 9, it specifically references, written by the attorney
Yes,
for the State Board of Education, that the town must
vote.
vote
We
to
could
close any school.
recommend it, I'm
You guys.
sure, but the town would still need to vote.
My question is not, around whether we would do that or not. I mean, we
No.
all agreed to those
Right.
articles of agreement and welcome Wyndham's decision to make, their own decision. Welcome their choice to make their own decision about it. But I'm just thinking forward on the alternative governance structure proposal that they're having. They're not asking to modify any of that. They're still trying to move forward, exactly like we all agreed.
Absolutely.
They
Thank
wanna
you.
stay like they are, that's the simple way to say it. And their meetings are open, they are following their board meetings on Monday.
Okay.
So they meet at 4, this committee meeting begins at about 5 on the first Monday of the month.
Okay.
If you're interested in hearing what they're talking about.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
Great, thanks. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Next item was Ken's policy ad. You want to explain that further, Ken?
Absolutely. In the WCSU and all school districts, there are 25 required policies by each school district. This being a newly formed school district, we have to warn and approve said minutes
Said policies.
or policies. So therefore, what I'm gonna recommend is, there's 25 of them, and I'm gonna recommend that we have Bill send out the first, it sounds like a lot, 15 policies.
Wait, 15 recommended policies?
15, no,
He's talking about required.
required.
Okay.
The first 15 required policies,
A, Bs, just-
which go from, actually, it'll be, I can tell you, it'll go from A1 to C7. I have them right here, if you wanna look at them. You want me to
You
give
can
you
get them
the?
on the website too.
Yes,
VSBA
well, yeah, right.
website.
They're on the VSBA website, but we're gonna have them on the website under this district, just like every other district has theirs warned and,
So Ken, in preparation, when you guys were still a gathering of citizens, you guys had discussed that it would be nice to have a point person for policies from your board. You guys haven't done that officially, but just in preparation, Ken worked with Meg to make sure that we have some drafts of the recommended policies, so that
the
your-
required policies.
the required policies, sorry. so that you guys can begin the process of reviewing those policies. So Meg actually has West River Modified Union School District policies.
So then you're just asking to have that put on the next agenda so that we can take the time to
Right,
review them?
right, and I suggest that we have Bill make sure that they get out to the board electronically, or we can somehow.
I'll follow up. So I'm clarifying question.
Mine too, sort of, but I'm wondering, with a board of this size and the work that we do down the road, at Leland and Gray, we have a policy committee to do that review, and I'm wondering whether we wanna consider doing that at this level too, so that I agree with everything you just said, we all need to be looking at these, but when it comes down to really digging into the policies, even the required ones, it can be done by committee outside of a regular board meeting, and then the committee would make recommendations back to the board after the board has reviewed them and reviewed any recommendations. The board makes the final decision no matter what, but I'm wondering whether that's a structure we want to be looking at. And I don't think it's necessary at this point necessarily under the required policies, because required policies pretty much mean that we cannot make changes to them. But once we get down the road a little farther into recommended, I think then I think we should consider doing that at this point.
Well, and when we start looking at what policies each different school has and whether we're gonna combine that into one or every school's
it's
gonna
gonna
keep
be
their
work.
own, it's gonna be a serious amount of work. And I
Yes,
think we
because
would
after
need
you
a
get
policy
past the
committee.
required, then you're gonna, exactly, you're gonna have, it
Right.
would be nice to have a group of 3 people
Yep.
that would look at these 3 policies and get the 3 policies, those exact 3 policies from your other boards. So that then they could just make a recommendation to the board.
Exactly.
We reviewed these, this is what we recommend. But you're right, for the required, this might be a way to start going.
Yeah,
But I agree, I think a small group would be ideal.
so the message there is start thinking about whether or not you wanna be on the policy committee. Cause at some point, we're
'Cause
gonna look for
probably in
volunteers.
August or September, we'll be looking.
Yeah, as we start going through this, I think there will
Could I
be
ask
a
another
lot of.
follow-up question?
Sure.
So Ken, not that you're volunteering to be on the policy committee, but you are asking me, superintendent, to get A1 through C7 digitally to the entire board
Right.
Okay.
Of required policies.
of required policies and to put this on as an agenda item.
And-
Yes.
Okay.
So, for the next meeting, just to clarify here, will those policies then be warned for adoption on that meeting? Or we will
No.
warn them after that meeting? We'll review them and then warn them?
We review them, warn them at the next meeting. I'll probably have some more for you at that meeting to review, to warn, and then at the following meeting, we can adopt.
You need 7 days or 10 days or something.
Right, so we can do it in a month, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And again,
okay.
none of these policies will be operational until July 1st, 2019.
Right.
Correct.
And they'll be the required,
So there's a-
they'll be the required policies too, so it's not like we can say, oh, well, I don't think we should.
Right,
do
we're
that.
just, this way, we're just ahead of the game, that's one less thing
I
we
mean,
gotta
you
worry
guys
about
could-
come
and
budget
you're
season
gonna
and all
end up
that stuff
probably
when it
being
comes
too ahead
around.
of the game, but that's okay. There might be some required policies that we have to revisit, but
Mhm.
it would be really nice to take care of this business.
But the reason I took 15 out of 25 is, this is actually about a third of the reading, and I figure we can do it in,
Thanks. C7 is the last one?
yes.
Meg will send us links, I
Yes.
bet.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, well,
They're all online, if you just send a link.
There are, but,
Yeah,
Might be nice.
actually, technically, you can look under any one of your board,
Back PDF.
your regular boards, like
Yeah.
Townsend,
Yeah.
Jamaica, and everything else, because they're required, and we already have them digitally.
Yeah, but they
Yeah.
recently changed the number sequence, and I don't know if we even caught up with it.
I think we did.
Leland and Gray did.
I think
We did.
Wyndham Central
Oh, yeah.
caught up with the changes in the
Yeah.
the
You
numbers.
bet
so I
we
think
did.
We're pretty good on it.
I was on a committee, I should know, but
All right, so everybody gets some homework, policies. And last and certainly not least, what do we got here? School-based councils.
So, during the creation of Act 46, one of the big parts of, and Emily, you can speak to this better than I can, but one of the big, mindsets was trying to figure out how to formalize community engagement on an ongoing basis when you are changing governance structure. And so VSBA, VSA, which is the Vermont Superintendent's Association, and VSBA did an extensive research study to figure out what other states do in these environments, and studied some different models, and then created this document, which you have in front of you, which explains school-based councils, which are in the law, that allow for the formal engagement of stakeholders. And so I think it's something that this board needs to review, discuss, consider, and decide how you guys are going to create school-based councils for your different buildings, if you choose to do so.
So school-based councils are a recommendation, not a.
They're a possibility within the
They're an
law.
option.
Possibility, which is not.
These are pretty powerful little entities in Massachusetts.
They are.
Yes, that was obviously one of the ones that was studied very strongly.
Yeah.
This document does a really nice job of talking about what school board responsibility and statutes are and what are possible. So my recommendation would be to make this an agenda item.
That's what I was just gonna, my
And
comment.
for you all to start devouring and start thinking about it. Again, it's not something I would make quickly. You're going to want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I would say, I am very greatly in favor of school-based councils because I think it's really important, especially during this transitional phase, that we are able to engage our communities around these conversations about this. This is a major change
Yes.
in many ways. So I really support this. I do want to take the time to read this, and I would love to see it put on an agenda down the road so that we can make sure that whatever we recommend moving forward, that it works in all 5 communities, because they're all different too. And so I think there needs to be some engagement maybe with the current boards in each of the communities, or community conversations. I assume the board might be the best.
Yeah.
The current town board might be the best first loop around in the
Yeah.
conversation, but I think it's really important that we have a conversation with each community to find out what works for them, because I think this is a great idea and I'd love to see us move forward with it in whatever way works best.
I agree with you, and in addition to just the boards, I think it would be very important to also have the principals and the teachers. in- Yes.
Yep.
I mean, in
To
many
make
ways,
sure,
it
to make
really
sure that the way that,
extends down into the stakeholders
Yep.
in a very official way.
We talked about this during the study.
Yep.
It did.
we sure
Right.
did.
Yeah.
And I think there's actually something in the articles that talks about advisory,
Yeah.
advisory boards
Yep.
that don't have a lot of power, but give you a flavor for what's going on in each individual. And we leave the makeup largely up to, in the articles, up to this board
We do. Yeah.
and to the individual schools.
And it looks like that this deals with the different powers. How much power then that council would have and what that would be. And I would think that would be really important in the beginning, so everyone understands how it fits into the structure, what it can and cannot do.
and I think your point, Emily, about making sure that those structures and the power works with the communities
Right.
that exist, because I've seen how this works really effectively in Massachusetts, and I've also seen how this has been very destructive for schools.
Right.
So I wanna make sure that we're creating a system that is going to be supporting our educators, and our students.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And that, at the same time, I think it's important to think also about, the structure, so that the authority that the school-based council has, doesn't impact our staff as well. You know what I'm saying? So principal, superintendent, all that. I think that may be what some of the problems are when they get around that. I think it's just really important that we're very clear on what their role is.
Yes.
And a concern is also around redundancy. You know, I wanna make sure that there's not a lot of redundancy.
And I also think we have to figure out first, how aligned are our elementary schools going to be? Would it make sense to have a school council for every elementary school or one school council for all of the elementary schools, depending on how aligned everyone's curriculum is, how much we're going to be, and that's something that we as a board are gonna be figuring out. Like how much are we gonna ensure that everyone's teaching the same thing in each school, or how much autonomy our school is going to have? And those decisions, I think, need to be made prior to deciding how a school council is gonna look, because this structure is going to dictate what happens in the focus for each of the schools. So I think that step needs to happen first before we decide how we're going to be doing school councils.
And
Yeah, I think it's just really important to do that from the very beginning, because I've seen problems with PTA groups and where do they fit in the school, so this would.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have an opportunity. I think what you guys are both kind of getting to is you guys really have to have the mindset of you're starting something completely fresh.
Right.
You're gonna have some tools at your disposal that are within the law, and you have some tools that are at your disposal that are within the community. But it's really that mindset of you guys are starting fresh, and there's a freedom to that, you know?
But at the same time, we also have to acknowledge institutional history.
Absolutely.
And make sure we start something fresh without being inclusive, that the students and the faculty and the community members are not starting fresh. They have been going to those schools. So we have to be able to balance that in a way that's inclusive.
That's why you have a 23-month run.
Thank goodness.
And so, the other piece that we'll need to look at is the connection and communication between the school-based council and this board. And one of the things we talked about during not just this study committee that formed the modified Unified Union School District, but also under the red, Patty, you'll remember, and Joe too, I'm sure, you too, Ken, where we had a conversation around the potential of having a board member be maybe not an official, but at least someone who participates from, say, you know, either Al or Joe would participate in those meetings if there's a school-based council in Townsend, that somebody from the board would try to attend so that there's that connection at all times too. So it made it a little more official when we had that conversation. I don't know whether we want to go that route, but I think that it's a potential conversation. It's communication, critical. Great.
All right, that's it. Future agenda,
So what's the date of our next meeting?
August 14th.
Is it?
Yep, that's the third Monday in August.
That's the,
Second.
That's
No,
the
it's the
second.
21st, Joe.
21st is the.
21st.
21st.
I thought
August
you
1st
had
is a
August
Tuesday.
flying by wicked fast.
Oh,
14th
you know
is the
what, I'm
second.
sorry.
It's like,
It'd be
Yep,
August,
It's
August 21st, September,
21st.
August 21st,
Sorry.
September 18th, and September 16th would be the next three, yeah.
All right, August 21st, I apologize.
18th and then 16th?
18 and 16.
No,
Thank you.
Details.
90 minutes, well done. Good meeting.
So where's this go in our file?
Ooh.
Where would you put it?
All right, one more motion, folks.
I make a motion, okay,
I make a motion to adjourn.
and I'll second it, but you don't need one.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Oh, yeah.
Aye.
Opposed? Anybody want to stay longer? All right,
Thank you, team.
thank you, everyone.